things boil down, you got to have an internship to graduate with this degree. So I'm like, hey man, what's up? He's like, hey, if you could come, you're gonna have to take off a semester of school, but I'll get you on the king and you'll just straight up guide deer hunts, nilgai hunts, and duck hunts. And I'm like, sign me up. Any dog can go and smell 100, 200 yard blood trail. I mean, if there's blood and gut or whatever, like a finished dog can run a blood trail and then keep going without blood, and then run a mortally wounded deer and bay that deer. And that's when you find a dog that can do it.
Tejas. Podcast is the podcast for you and you. What's up, guys, and welcome to episode 35 of the Tejas Club podcast. I'm your host, Brandon McDowell, and this week I'm going to be sitting down with Ricky Loftis of RL Deer Tracking up in North Texas, and we're going to be talking about blood tracking dogs. We're going to be talking about how he got started in the game and the love that he has for his dogs and the love we both share of hunting dogs. So I first saw Ricky on Instagram. He actually tracked a deer for our good friend Chad Jones that's been on the podcast multiple times. Actually, it was for his daughter. And once I saw that, and kind of commented on that post, I went and followed Ricky because he was posting some cool content. He was running some hog dogs. He was showing some cool videos of tracks he was doing with his deer dogs, and he was just producing cool content that I enjoyed. And I've kind of got to watch his page kind of grow, and then also his other page that he started, Lite Hounds, where he shares all hunting dog content. He shares it from different other people, and then of content he creates himself. So if you're if you're into that sort of thing like we are, be sure to give his page a follow. I'll link it in the description below, but I'll also probably have it pop up here somewhere. There it is. And then be sure to give him a follow. I think you'll enjoy this podcast. If you're not into hunting dogs, which I don't understand why you wouldn't be, this isn't going to be the podcast for you. If you're into hunting dogs, this is the one that you need to listen to. We've been trying to keep the content flowing as much as we can. If you're following the YouTube channel, if you're not and listening to the podcast, I don't understand why. It's in the description. All you got to do is click on it, and you get to see some cool content. But we dropped the podcast last week of the guys and I went down to Florida, Colby, Jared, and Bobby, some of my best friends I've had for a long time. So if you haven't listened to that podcast, I suggest you go listen to it now. It was a lot of fun getting to talk with those guys. Jared's been on the podcast before, as most of the listeners know, but Colby and Bob hadn't been on the podcast, and we gave Bob a hard time because you just got to know him to love him. But he's one of my best friends, and of course, he was the one that had some noises and sounds going off and getting some Zoom calls while we were in the middle of the podcast. So he begged me not to leave that in there, but it's funny. It has to stay. So like I said, if you haven't listened to that podcast, go back and check that one out. Hopefully, I'm pretty sure I got the videos dropped already, but if not, bear with me. The tarpon video and the iguana video are going to be out, dropping on the YouTube channel. Check out, we'll post reels and stuff on Instagram and on Facebook, but go check those videos out. And then also check out the real avid unboxing video that I did. We'll have some more content coming with that, with the AR bills, like I mentioned before, and then mounting optics on our pistols and things like that. We're actually getting some Vortex optics on the way to the house right now, and a couple other goodies that we've picked up. So stick around for that content, and be sure to subscribe so you get all the notifications when all that stuff's dropping. Kind of hit a little milestone, I'd like to say. We're a little over a year into the podcast, and this will be the 35th episode. So I definitely want to say thank you to all the people that have been listening from episode 1, or if this is your first podcast that you're listening to of ours, I want to say thank you for listening, and then hopefully you're checking out our other content as well. Derek Alguesova, rocking a taxidermy and guide service, another guest that we've had on the podcast, is putting on an all-women's predator hunt in March. It's going to be running the 16th through the 17th, and the weigh-in is going to be in Rio, Medina, Texas. So if you're interested, ladies, get your teams together and give Derek a shout on his Facebook page or on his Instagram, and y'all can get entered up in that contest. Also, our buddy Bill Weekly is involved in Wildlife in Focus, which is a wildlife organization out of San Antonio, Texas, that's focused on for photographing native wildlife of Texas. They're actually having one of their big fundraisers coming up on April the 20th. Actually, Megan and I's wedding day, so we're not going to make that event. But Wildlife in Focus is going to be having their annual clay shoot on Saturday, April the 20th, down in Mathis, Texas. For more information on this event, you can register your team as well. You can go to www.wildlifeinfocus.org, or you can call 361-342-9585. Also, you can email info@wildlifeinfocus.org. If you haven't listened to the podcast that we had with Bill Weekly, that one's a great one. It was one of our first podcasts that we actually put out and produced, and he was gracious enough to lend us his time and go out and talk about wildlife photography, hunting white-tailed deer, and kind of his story and how he got into the business that he's in today. If you're not following his page, he is an awesome photographer. It's Wild Build Photography. If you search that on Instagram, it'll pop up. But also link it down in the description below. You can check his page out and give him a follow. But he's posted about it. Wildlife in Focus is also an Instagram account where they're sharing the information about the clay shoot. So be sure and give those guys a follow. And if you think you're handy with a 12 gauge or 20, go out and support Wildlife in Focus on Saturday, April the 20th. Well, guys, enough talking, enough blabbing. We're going to get into this podcast with Ricky Loftis and talk about deer tracking dogs. Thanks for listening, guys. And as always, hit that subscribe button, leave us a review, and enjoy our content. See y'all next week.
Can you hear me?
I think I got it working.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can.
Right.
Sorry about
What's
that,
up?
man. I thought my headphones were charged, and of course they weren't. So I had to go get my little battery pack and plug them in. But we're all good right now.
You're good. Yeah, my computer's so old that it didn't even work, so I'm just going off the phone.
Yeah, I've had guests do that as well, so it's all good, man. It's pretty cool. This app that I use, man. I tell everybody that a few people have asked me because they wanted to start their own podcast and stuff, and I'm like, dude, if you want to get something that's real easy to use, Riverside's like the way to go because you can use it on a phone, on a computer, everything, and it all works. The only thing, it gets a little funny if you don't have like a strong connection, or you might have to like wait a little longer. Like I recorded a podcast last night with my buddies after we got back for that iguana trip, and
Yeah.
my buddy Jared, we were up till like 1 o'clock last night because it was just taking forever to freaking upload for some reason, and it has to, like, my window has to stay open. So I was lucky enough because I didn't work out yesterday, but I was like doing push-ups and stuff while I was waiting on that to upload. So it kind of worked out, but
Yeah.
but it's still a pretty good app to record on and everything. But I'm glad I got you on the podcast today, man. When you reached out, I had been meaning to reach out to you, and I was going to wait until kind of for sure deer season was over. I know some people stuff,
Yeah.
MLD stuff going on, and I was going to reach out to you to record one, but I'm glad you sent me a message the other day.
Yeah, dude. I was sitting around messing around. I've actually starting a little brand. It's like a hound. I don't know. I don't know if you've seen my logo or whatever with the skeleton dude, but
Yeah.
I'm starting to do that, but I'm gonna do like all different kinds of working dogs. So like I've got a hog dog sketch, a duck dog, and another deer dog sketch. But I'm starting a little brand, and
Yeah.
I've been, dude, I've been on this trying to figure this social media stuff out because dude, I'm 35 next month, and I don't. It's Trying to figure this stuff out is killing me. So I'm trying to
I hear you,
start
man.
up it and all that stuff, and it's been a work.
It's funny because like I'm about the same age. I'm 32, so I'm not that far
Yeah,
behind you. But it's like when you get into that range of where like our age people, kind of like that 4 year span, if you kind of went to high school, right? And
right,
you either get one or the other. You either get people that are like real good, or at least good at Facebook. Like people get on Facebook that are our age, or people like I got friends and buddies like you. Like, dude, I get on there like every once in a while. Most of my buddies that have Facebook probably get on Facebook Marketplace and then just hop off,
right,
and
right.
that's pretty
Yeah,
much it. But yeah, and then you get like some like me, like I've since social media came out, like I was on MySpace and like changing my background and had all the music and all that kind of stuff, dude. Like I can
right,
still like add it. All that was like fun for me. So when it came
right.
into like Facebook and then got into Instagram, of course, and like it was just kind of like pretty simple because it's something I enjoyed doing. It's like
Yeah,
um, it's kind of to this point now. It's kind of like a game, I guess. And I like
right.
create, and I fell in love with like creating content, of course. But like just doing the
Yeah,
stuff that we do, it's fun to film, and then we get to go on jobs, and it's opened some doors and gotten us some places that
yeah. Heck
normally
yeah.
you wouldn't get into. But
Right.
it like I said, it's fun for me, man. But yeah, I could definitely help you out and give you some pointers and tips and stuff on that end.
I'm gonna need them. Like I said, it's kind of giving me an excuse to kind of push the videos and
Yeah,
all the content stuff, and because I don't try to blow up my deer tracking stuff because I don't need to, and I'm not trying to get like YouTube famous with my deer tracking stuff.
yeah,
It's just
yeah,
I don't not that easy to do, and I don't need it that number one, and number two, I don't got time to do what I'm doing as much as I'm doing it
yeah.
and record and do all that stuff. So this little Lite Hound page that I'm starting is kind of like my excuse. I can go jack with it, and I can try to push it to the max. It's going to be all different kinds of working dogs. So it's going to be cool.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Well, good man. Like I'm glad we started it out this way. Which do a little intro now. But welcome to this
Yeah.
episode of the Tejas Sun Club podcast, guys. This week I'm sitting down with Ricky Loftis of RL Deer Tracking up in North Texas, and I came across his page because we have a mutual friend who has also been a multiple time guest on the podcast, Chad Jones. So shout out to Chad. I first came across your page when he tagged you for tracking his daughter's deer. And
Right.
if we listen to the podcast, I love dogs. I love hunting dogs, no matter if it's duck dogs, hog dogs, like cow dogs too. Like I love it. So anytime I see guys that use working dogs, I'm definitely going to give their page a follow, and then also share your content because you were posting some pretty cool videos of tracking some deer and stuff. So Ricky, I would kind of you kind of gave a little bit of an intro about yourself, but tell us like kind of where you grew up, and how you got into hunting, and then kind of how you got into deer dogs.
Yeah. So I grew up in Pilot Point, Texas, which is kind of north of DFW. Um, been hunting my whole life. My dad introduced me to it when I was young. I think I killed my first deer when I was like 7 years old. So been doing that forever. Um, I when I was about 19, I was going to school at Stephen F. Austin, and I was trying to do a wildlife management degree, and made it through about a year. And I had some buddies that picked up a internship on the King Ranch. Well, things boiled down. You got to have an internship to graduate with this degree. So I'm like, hey man, what's up? He's like, hey, if you could come, you're gonna have to take off a semester of school, but I'll get you on the King, and you'll just straight up guide deer hunts, nilgai hunts, and duck hunts. And I'm like, sign me up. So at 19 years old, I dropped everything and I moved to Kingsville, and I guided I was under 3 or 4 different biologists there, but I guided for the King Ranch, and was part of my internship. But I did kind of their lower end hunts. I didn't do any big trophy hunts, but I did a bunch of management cull hunts and nilgai hunts, and I was the first person, I fake to ever guide like a duck hunt on like King Ranch that wasn't like a lease, like it was through the King Ranch. So it was really cool deal. Come to find out, it wasn't what I wanted to do for a living. It made my hobby into work, man.
Yep.
It was like, I'm staying up with clients till 1, 2 in the morning, and then waking up at 4 in the morning and picking them back up again. And it was a beating. But anyways, during that time, we used guys, different deer dogs around that area. So we had there was several different guys and a couple guys that had leases that kind of had ranch dogs that just kind of stayed on the ranch and then tracked their deer. And I remember numerous times we had dogs, and I was like, man, that's cool, blah, whatever. Went on, and I was like, man, I'm done with this. I don't want to. I'm gonna try to find something else to do for a job. Well, I came back home, kind of went did my basic school stuff, trying to figure out what I was gonna do with myself. And that very next year, I came home and picked up a pretty cool little piece of property, and I shot a like 170-inch typical 10 point. Like, I mean, it's cool, as clean of a typical deer as you can imagine. And I shoulder punched him and couldn't find him. So I'm at that time I was like, man, I got this can't be a thing. Like I'm gonna start my own dogs. Like
Yeah.
I'm up here in North Texas. There wasn't really any dogs at that time. And so that's what I dove off into. And now looking back, I would have never found that deer anyways. I didn't get any penetration into the shoulder blade. That deer was alive and well. So
Yeah.
it wasn't nothing that could have changed, but that's what sparked me into trying, and that was like 2012 or 2013. So ever since then, I've been trying to train a dog or working dogs since then.
Okay. Okay. Well, a couple things were there where you said when you said Stephen F. Austin.
Yeah.
Did you graduated from Stephen F. Austin?
No, I didn't, dude. I went 1 year.
Oh,
I went
okay. Because I was just
I
saying,
went 1 year.
I graduated
Go
from
ahead.
Sam Houston State, so we're
Okay.
kind of rivals in that aspect. So I was like, oh man, like this is what's gonna be the bad part of Ricky is that he went to
No.
Stephen F. Austin.
1 year. Drank a little too much beer, and then ended up on that internship, and that kind of. Thankfully, I'm glad I did it, man. I'd have hate to have gone 4 or 5 years and gotten that degree and then got out in it and tried to make it happen. And I got a couple of buddies that did, and they're doing fine.
Yeah, but
But man,
you
I
figured out it
went.
wasn't for you.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't want to ruin my hobby, man. It was
Yeah,
like it turned it into work. I
yeah,
didn't even want to look at deer after I left there, man. It was like
yeah.
it was something else.
It
But
was kind of that same deal. Like I actually went my freshman year of college. I went to Texas A&M Kingsville. So what year were you down there?
I was there in 2008, I
Okay,
think. 2000. No, it was 2007. It might have been, yeah, 2008 was the beginning. Then I left there 2009 in January. So
got
I
you.
was there
So
for like one full season, basically.
yeah, so you left like right before I got there because I was there in the fall of 10 and like spring of 11. But like the
Yeah.
same kind of deal. I really didn't know what I wanted to do in college at first, and I was an animal science major because everybody like you go to FFA or N4H or something. It's
Oh
like
yeah.
you want to be you're just going to go to vet school. Well, then you figure out well. Only like one out of the whole class of 200 is going to make it to vet school or make it through. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but there's a lot of opportunity for wildlife and stuff. And I kind of wish I'd have went that route or actually known kind of some of the stuff I could have done through that route. But then
Right.
again, I might not have ended up doing what I'm doing now. So it worked
Yeah.
out the way it's supposed to work out. But it's cool that you got to experience that and like figure out, hey, this isn't something I want to do. And like I try to
Yeah.
tell like younger my cousins and stuff that are younger than me or like people that I know that are younger than me, like going to college or like going somewhere and like kind of figuring out it's not all about like figuring out what you want to do. It's a whole lot of figuring out what you don't want to do, to be honest with you.
Exactly right.
So like taking those chances like that and like being willing to kind of get out of your comfort zone and go see other places, like you're gonna learn something and it's either gonna be good or you're gonna learn that you really don't like it. But
Yeah.
coming across those dogs down there and learning that it was cool too. So before that, you hadn't really had like any like time around deer tracking dogs or anything like that before you got there.
Not deer dogs. I've always had like a bird dog. I got really my passion, from the time I could get around and go on my own without my dad was duck hunting. So I had a couple different duck dogs that were, got me into the dog game.
Yeah.
But I'd never seen a deer dog till I got down there, and it was just blew me away, man, what they can do. So,
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and I've been hearing like the more guys I meet from North Texas that grew up hunting, most of the guys up there are really big duck hunters, and I mean y'all kind of are in the flyway more, I guess, or probably get more ducks than because where I grew up in Goliad, duck hunting wasn't really a thing. Like we knew about it.
yeah,
You might knew a couple people that kind of duck hunted towards like Wharton or Columbus or that area, but like for the most part, nobody really duck hunted around Goliad. But it's that's from transitioning from like those dogs getting you into it. And I think kind of everybody's like, if you hunt a little bit, everybody probably grows up with a lab puppy,
oh
you
yeah,
know. So I
yeah,
think the labs are probably like the ones that get most people into dogs. But then again, like growing up in South Texas, where I'm from, like growing up, we knew about deer dogs. Now you might
yeah,
like have heard of somebody that had a good one every now and then, but like, oh, we gotta like kind of what you said about having a ranch dog that come deer season, he's gonna go out there and probably find a couple deer for you. Now, is he like finished to go out, and do it all the time? Probably
right,
not,
right. Yeah,
but
it's a whole different ball game from ranch dog to commercial dog. I promise you.
oh yeah, I've gotten to see um some of Roy Hines' dogs work, and then I can't remember his name. I'm blanking on his name right now, but some of their dogs work, and like you see them, and you're like, this is a completely different animal than
Oh yeah,
the two catahoulas that I have that have found my deer for
right.
me. Like, but cool. So like, what was the you said when you got back, and you had that deer that you shot that lived, of course, but that kind of sparked you wanting to get into deer tracking. So like, what was your first steps after that? Like, did you reach out to somebody, or did you just kind of start Googling? Like, how'd you figure it out?
Well, I started looking up dogs, and of course, if you're in Texas, you hear about this Texas Blue Lacy dog, right?
Yep,
So
you do.
first thing I did was find a guy. He was where was he at? Like kind of Cleburne kind of area. Anyways, he had some Lace dogs, supposed to be good genetics. I didn't really care, honestly. I just wanted a daggum dog, right?
Yeah.
So I get this dog, and then there was a page on Facebook. It was like Texas Blood Trackers. Well, they were doing like a teaching type deal like once a year where you could go down. They would put a couple mock trails out. You could run your dog, and there were some guys there that would kind of tell you what's going on, what you did wrong, what your dog's doing, blah blah blah, and you learn a lot from that deal. So I got the dog. I went down to that Texas Blood Trail. It might have been in 2013. I think 2013 or 14. Anyways, went down there, ran him. The dog would find deer. I mean, it wasn't. It was to me, it was awesome. It, I'd never seen anything like it, and I'd do mock trails at the house and stuff, and he would find some deer. Well, uh, there was a couple guys, older gentlemen down like Central and South Texas that I, would talk to quite a bit, and they were, kind of teaching me mainly because I wasn't in their area. I'm up here in North Texas, and I don't pose no threat to to their
Yeah.
business. So they were willing to share their vast knowledge of stuff that I had no clue about. So I was able to learn from a couple guys and came back, and I worked that dog the very first year, and I did the cardinal sin of having a 1 year old dog, and I'm posting on Facebook, hey, I'll come find your deer for public. Well, inevitably I ruined that dog going on tracks that were unfindable deer or unmortally wounded deer, and I got myself into a situation where I'd found a couple deer here and there, kind of, hey, you'd find a dead deer inside
The
200
the
yards.
ones that actually had probably good shots on them.
Yeah,
Would you
yeah, and
say? You know?
yeah, good shot. And I will say the very first deer that we found was a sure enough. I mean, it was a gut shot deer, and they had virtually ruined the track before we got there, and it might have been 20 something hours later, but it was my first call. I'm going on anything at that
Yeah.
time, and went and reset the dog a couple times, and then found this deer for this young boy, and then after that it was like I'm hooked, man. I mean, it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. Like there wasn't no blood, there wasn't nothing. And this little 1 year old 40-pound Lacey dog finds this dead deer 20 hours later, and it might have been sheer luck, but it happened. And then, like I said, that year we found a couple more, but inevitably there was some deer getting away from us that shouldn't have been. And I was seeing it. And then, uh, I got on the hunt trying to find another dog and some other dogs, and went through two or three dogs, and now I've got the dog now, and I've been fortunate to have him because he's a blessing, man. He's the dude.
I
He can
got
do it.
you. So with those other dogs, that you tried, did you get try other breeds other than Lacey's, or did you kind of
Yeah,
stay with
well,
those?
well, I'll dig up a hole here, but you try a Lacey one time, and you might not ever try another one. uh, No, I end up finding a really good dog out of Central Texas, around Austin area, and I think it might have a touch of Lacey in it, but it's far cry from that. So I found out that there's different traits and stuff that you wanna keen in on, and ended up with it's a crossed up hound, man. It's
Yeah,
not a paper dog by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a methodically bred mutt is what he
dude,
is, and
those I mean, that's what I grew up around. Honestly, we had a lot of guys that were like, "Oh, those are yellow blackmouth curs," you know. I'm like, but it probably got stretched out, you know, went down the street a couple times
yeah.
and branched out.
Yeah,
I like crossed up dogs. I really do. Like I like crossed up cows too. I like crossed up dogs. It's just
yeah,
when you can put dogs together and breed them to a way that like they're coming out and they're doing a job that you need them to do. It doesn't matter what color they are. It doesn't matter what how big their ears are or anything like that. It's if the dog can do the job and that's what two dogs took to make that, then
yep,
run them together. Now, I mean, you get some guys that are purist on breeds, which hey, to each their own.
yeah. No, and like I said, this dog was bred for a purpose. There's no doubt about it. And actually, the um his litter had an exceptional turnout rate. Like I want to say 5 or 6 out of 8 are like sure enough tracking dogs, like can do it.
Nice.
I don't think all of them are alive now, but it was a very good litter, and I was very very fortunate to get a hold of one of those dogs. And honestly, he and it's probably all my fault. I'm no dog training specialist on the planet by any stretch, but I almost called him. Like there was a point where with some of the older guys, like, man, if he ain't doing this, he ain't doing that, it might be time to, you know, try to get another dog.
Yeah.
And we had, I think he was 2, and we had a certain track, and it was early October, 85 degrees. Track for a buddy, of course, where it's one of these I'm gonna go no matter what kind of deals. And it was a frontal shot, entered by the neck and came out the other armpit. So we were thinking one long something, right?
Okay.
And we made it in there, got about 250 yards, and dog was getting lost, and it was hot, man. It was super hot. Like an idiot, I went in the middle of the day, like I was so excited to go. And he had found, I mean, a dog found 20, 30 deer that are, dead inside 2, 3, 400 yards. Like, no problem. Dog found them. And
Yeah.
then bait a couple that, were easier finds, good
Yep.
conditions. But this one, we got to this point and we were kind of lost. The dog laid under the shade tree, and I'm like, God Almighty, like, what are we gonna do? And I kind of got on my GPS and looked on his track, and I'm like, I'm gonna go up there where he last went. And I went up there, and I'm looking, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna try to find blood on his trail. And I'm looking down at GPS, I'm looking down at the blood. Okay, there's some blood. Sure enough, he's here. Well, no more than I kind of look at that blood, I start hearing baying, and I'm like, and I'm talking probably 200 yards away, and I'm like, what the heck is that? It's like, is that? Holy shit, that's him! Like he's baying. Like what are we doing? I run down there, and sure enough, he's got this deer bayed up, and was able to sneak in there and finish this deer off. And turns out he was like a one lung shot type deer. They probably caught the top side of the other lung and whatever. But after that track, it was the light switch clicked, and it was and it took me going up there and showing him the confidence that I was there. Hey, I'm here.
Yeah.
Let's keep pushing. Let's keep going. And dude, after that, it was all downhill. I mean, he's learned a ton since then. I've learned even more, but it was that track that day that started this whole. I mean, the successful part of my my career that I've had.
Yeah. Yeah.
It started off on the low end and had not so great dogs, and ever since that single track, man, it's been all good.
Yeah.
It's just uphill.
It's cool that like that was the one because it was a little bit harder and you had to work a little bit extra for it
No
and kind of
doubt.
and also kind of figure not just have your dog figure something out, but have you figure something out
Oh,
as a handler with that as well. Because I mean, it you can have dogs that work, but then they don't work as well if they don't have a good handler. And if you don't
oh,
like it it's a different thing, I guess you can see. Like I said, I've been lucky to be around some guys that train different kinds of dogs, like even like you said, from duck dogs to being around guys with hog dogs and stuff, and being cow dogs, and you can see different guys and how their dogs act around them. Like for me, if a dog doesn't like if a guy's dogs don't look at him like he's king, you know,
right.
you can see the difference. Like you can see the
Yeah,
guys that that maybe their dogs kind of shy away from them, and you might have that too. But like a guy's got a good handle on a dog when that dog is like at that's where that dog's attention is at all times,
yeah.
and it's
His
like, hey,
purpose is to please him.
yes,
Yeah,
and it's like, hey, buddy, we're going to work, and this is what we're going to do. So, what? How do you kind of you got your dog now as a puppy, right? And then like
yeah.
how did you kind of what did you learn on how to start them? Like, where do you start when training when you first get him?
I mean, you're getting them at 8 weeks or give or take, whatever time that is. But it starts from then, man. I mean, you're putting bloody dog food in the yard and making them search out their dinner. You know what I mean? It starts from the very beginning. The big deal is like like you said, a lot of any dog can go and smell 100 200 yard blood trail. I mean, if there's blood and gut or whatever it might
Yep.
be, like a lot of dogs can are just going to naturally do that. I mean, what kind of dog doesn't go to a dead animal scent or something that smells good, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you start with that but stuff, but like a finished dog can run a blood trail and then keep going without blood and then run a mortally wounded deer and bay that deer. And that's when you find a dog that can do it, because like I said, you can find a dead deer. I mean, it that there's something to it. Don't get me wrong. And and sometimes we
Mm-hmm.
find dead deer that are a mile away. I mean, it happens. It happens all the time. But finding that dog that can smell and has that prey drive and can run one and get that bottom in and get out and go run one and then stop it and let you come finish them off. That's where the real dog comes in.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. I always get a kick out of, I follow different pages and different podcasts and see different stuff on social media, and you see those guys in the Midwest. Like, don't get me wrong, they have different laws that they have to adhere to and stuff, but
Yeah,
they get to track deer with a variety of breeds of dogs. and you can
Right.
see anything from a dachshund to a golden retriever to
Yeah.
all kinds of different dogs. And like you said, those dogs find deer, but
Oh yeah.
I could promise you that you couldn't take those. You could take the dogs from Texas and go find deer up there, and it might hurt
Oh
some
yeah.
people's feelings. But you're not going to take most dogs from up there and let them find deer down here, like it, and exotics
No.
either. Like it's, I don't think it's going to work. But I don't know. It'd
No, it's
be
a
cool to
totally
see.
different dog down here. And like, I guess like Florida and Georgia and a couple of these southern states, they can run their dog off lead like we can
Yeah,
and get these dog and get these deer that are, which blows my mind. These deer are mortally wounded animals. And, but they can get them bait up and we can finish them off as you should because it's morally the thing you should do.
exactly.
Um, So, but there are a few states, and I'd put any of the southern state dogs up against any of the leash dogs up north. I mean, now it's a whole different playing field. And I started that first dog, and I started this dog kind of on leash to try to kind of get a handle on him,
Yep.
and I've learned since then. I mean, you don't need to start them on a leash. Like I mean, uh, they're either gonna figure it out or they're not. So. But it is. You're exactly right. And I might even say Texas dogs are the baddest dogs on the planet. I don't know, but
Hey man,
they've been around longer than most. You know what I'm
I
saying?
won't be one not to back you up on that. I might be a little partial. I might be a little partial, but
We're
I,
both biased, I'm sure.
yeah, yeah, exactly, man. But that's pretty cool. So like you said, you kind of start them on bloody food and stuff, and then like for certain things, you like you said, you use the elite to kind of get a handle on them. But
Right,
mostly, it's just like for me and the stuff I've done with my two dogs. Like I said, they're by no means finished, but they mine pretty good, and I've gotten some pretty cool
right.
compliments on them and stuff. But it was really just spending time with them and like being able to as a puppy kind of like take it everywhere with you. And I was lucky growing up, not growing up, but like where we lived in College Station, we lived at like a little duplex community. It's called the Flying Ace Ranch. And if you've been in College Station at any point in time, you and partied at Harry's, you might have made your way to the Flying Ace Ranch
Yeah.
one night. But it had a horse arena, a barn, and all that kind of stuff. So there was cows there and stuff. So I worked there, so I got to take my dogs with me every day, and they got to be
Right.
around horses and got to be around cattle and stuff. Like there were so many days when I first got Shadow, my female, like she would get out of the gate or something, and then like where would she be? Up the road at the steer pen, just baying the freaking steers. Like she would just be up there all the time. But
Find something
I
to
got.
do.
Yeah, I got to work with them a lot and get a pretty good handle on them. But like I said, I think spending time and being able to have them with you kind of does a lot for that training part right at the beginning.
Oh yeah. There's no doubt, man. I mean I think that's a big part in any kind of dog you're gonna work with is
Yeah,
just being with them, being around them. So that's probably putting them on. And the other thing is just putting them on as much stuff as you possibly can. Just being out in the woods. I mean, nothing can mimic a real deer track too. Like you can put a bunch of fake blood trails and do mock trails and all that stuff, and which part of kind of cracks me up because a lot of these up north and a lot of places have this UBT1, UBT2, UBT3 mock trail track, and if you pass that track, you've got a finished dog, and that just cracks me up because if I laid a mock trail for my dog right now, he would literally look at me like I'm an idiot. Like, because it's nowhere near the same
I
thing as a
think.
real deer track. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So I remember when he was about before that track happened that we found that one deer. I'd laid a mock track and he was just looking at me like I was stupid, but he was taking the trail, but just just slow and he wasn't really doing it. And I called one of my buddies that actually he has the brother to my dog, and I was telling him what I was like, Ricky, it's a fake ass track, dude. Like you don't think he knows this by now? And I'm like, man, shouldn't he still do it? He goes, no, he doesn't want the fake track. He wants the real stud. So, and then, and then kind of after that, the mock trails are kind of a puppy deal,
Yeah.
inside the first maybe 6 months. But past that, man, there ain't nothing like the real deal. So,
Yeah. So when with that training too, did you let him go after any other game, or were you just strictly like, hey, we're deer
no,
tracking, this is all we're doing, we're not even going to pay attention to anything else?
no, I mean, we did during off season, we'd go down to where I got the dog and shoot axis and stuff. But like outside of that, black buck axis, we've ran nilgai and stuff before, but no pigs, no nothing, man. I don't want. We run into pigs every freaking track. The last thing I needed him thinking that pigs stink. They make a lot of noise. They're fun. I
Yeah.
can't be. I don't. I don't need that. We're not here to do that. So it's a strictly a deer type deal.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Or the
saying?
exotics
Whether
too.
yeah, whatever type deer it is, if it's an exotic or an elk or whatever it is, a nilgai, which isn't a deer, but yeah, no hogs, no nothing like that.
Okay, okay. Which makes perfect sense. It's like why even introduce that, to have even further problems down the line. I mean,
Yeah,
you have some people that kind of start dogs on different stuff to see like their prey drive or anything, but I'm sure
right.
coming with like you said, you went to a specific place and found a specific litter with proven, genetics behind it. You probably don't have to question whether this dog is gonna want to do it or not. You're not going to have
Right.
to like kind of tease it out of them or anything like that, which is probably like a good thing, a good way to start, I would say.
Yeah, and I mean, and you can shoot. I mean, a lot of guys I know guys that shoot pigs and let their dogs track pigs, and I mean, and a wounded pig trail is obviously going to be different than a live pig that pig guys are running or hog dogs are running.
Yeah.
But I just didn't want to. I didn't want to introduce it. Now, has my dog bait up pigs when he? Yes. I mean, there's no doubt about it. When we were first starting, I can tell you there was at least three times like where he was 1 to 2 years old and we're bait up and I'm thinking I'm coming in on a big deer that we're tracking and there'd be a 200-pound boar just sitting there in his face and I'm like, bro,
This
are
ain't
we
what we're here
really
for.
doing this right now? Like you look like an idiot in front of the guy. Like, yeah, we don't run no hogs, but the big stinky thing gets in his path. It's kind of hard not to give it a little run and bay it up.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Like
But
that's happened too. Like sometimes, in, like some of the guys I work cows with, and like we'd come up on hogs sometimes. And I mean, if you didn't have a couple trashy cow dogs, like what fun would you have while you're
yeah,
working cows? You know?
right. Yeah, who doesn't want to go pay up a pig? I mean,
Yeah,
it's fun.
exactly.
I love it. Don't get me wrong. I'm going here in a couple weeks to run with my boys, and we're gonna run some pigs. I'd do it every weekend if I could.
Yeah.
That's just not what we're here for
Yeah,
during
that's
deer
not what
season.
we're here for during deer
Yeah,
season. Okay,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, that sounds about right, man. So, like you said, moving along with that dog, and kind of, what's the difference for you, or what's your opinion on the difference between tracking whitetails and of course tracking the exotics, like you were talking about, and does
Man,
it vary kind of species by species, or kind of is it kind of the same or similar?
I don't have a ton of experience with the exotics because, like up where I'm at, there's maybe five high fences within 2 hours of me. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm in the golden knot triangle of high fences up here. So, and I wish because I've got buddies that track almost year round.
yeah,
They got stuff to do. Like my buddies down in South Texas, they're running nilgai and exotics throughout the summer, dude. I
yeah.
can't. January 1 hits here, and I'm basically done. So I don't have a ton of experience. There are like an elk does not have a gland in their hoof like a deer does.
Okay.
So, like a white-tailed deer has a gland in their hoof that puts off a scent, and
Yep.
a wounded deer will put off a scent that a live deer won't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Elk don't
I've
do
always
that.
cut the when we're skinning deer and stuff. I've always cut those off. Just tossed them over and let the dogs chew on
Oh,
those.
you bet. Yeah, that's snacks for sure. I keep my whole freezer over here is loaded with them. So, but that's the difference. That's the difference between elk. I don't know about nilgai. I've only ran two, and both of them were like gut shots, so it was gravy train for the dog.
Yeah,
Didn't matter. They didn't even have to have hooves. They had guts.
yeah,
So, what didn't have no issues there. Now, as far as the other deer species, I want to say they all have the gland, but I don't know.
yeah, yeah. Like I had to call Justin Dixon down in South Texas. I shot an axis. Was it last May or beginning of last summer? And it was a pretty it was a low shot on his front shoulder, kind of went in his front shoulder and then kind of blew out his brisket. So I mean
Yeah.
he was dying, but he wasn't dead yet. And
Oh
man,
yeah.
we went on. He took us on a track, and his Justin's dogs worked for it. And that axis, like you said, man, they're strong. Whitetails are strong animals, but I think axis
Oh, I
definitely
agree.
have them beat, man. Because
Oh, I agree.
I think we walked about 3.5 miles that night on that track, and he
Yeah.
just took it in a big circle, and we just couldn't get him stopped. But we finally
Yeah.
got him killed and everything, and I wound up getting. I'm actually going to pick up his hide this weekend. We
Oh,
got the call
y'all
today.
got him stopped and caught.
Well, Charlie found him the next because I had to leave, and Charlie found him that next day. He kept looking and looking, finally found him, and he was
Oh, okay.
just like barely hanging on underneath the bush.
Yeah.
And Charlie called me, and he was like, "Hey man, I found him." He's like, "Hey, I can keep watching him if you want to make it down here." And I was like, "Dude, I don't want that deer to
Put
suffer."
him down. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want
Yeah.
that deer to suffer. He gave me the option, but like I said, I was like, "Hey man, I'm I made a bad shot. I don't want that deer to suffer no more than he is. You put him down, and then he said, done, and hung up the phone. He went and took care of him, and then he called me
Yeah.
back and sent me pictures of him and everything, and got his Euro mounted and all that kind of stuff. So, that was my first time running into that problem, like
Yeah.
of shooting an animal and still having it. I was just lucky before. Like I mean, I shoot quite a bit, so like, but
Right.
I'm not a bad shot. But like stuff happens.
It
But that was
happens, man.
the first time that's ever happened, and it's like it still kind of stings a little bit,
Oh yeah.
but I still want to get back out there and do it because I mean, like I said, I spend a lot of time shooting bows, shooting guns too. So it's like it's just playing a game of odds, honestly.
Oh, it's inevitable.
If it doesn't happen to you, you probably haven't hunted enough, as they say.
Oh, I trust me. It happened to me last year, man. And I'm probably more arrogant than most because I'm like, hell, I hit the thing, a dog will find it. Like I ain't worried about it. But
Yeah, yeah,
I hit one last year that the dog found but couldn't stop, and so no, I mean it's inevitable. I don't care what you're shooting or how long you've done it. It's gonna if it ain't happened to you yet, it will happen.
yeah. And if it hasn't, you probably know somebody that it has happened to.
Oh yeah,
Oh, for
oh yeah.
sure. Because, like you said, you grow up hearing those stories of those deer that you don't find, and the especially the big ones that you don't
Oh, it's always
find.
the big ones, right?
Yeah, it's always the big ones, but when they have some truth behind it, and man, I it's a sickening feeling, and not being able
Um,
to have the access to dogs or something to help you out is
yeah,
even worse in some cases.
yeah. There's no doubt about it. I've been there. I'll be there again.
Most likely so, man. So
Yeah.
I know you got the one dog. What's and so how long have you technically been doing it? You said you started in like 2013, right?
Yeah, this is like my ninth season, was this year. Um, like I said, the first couple of years were rocky, and then I think the third year was the year I got this dog, and I was very very picky the year that he was like one. Um, I did not take a bunch of hard tracks. I was very very skeptical, and I only took tracks that I thought we could find, and then tracks from my buddy. So I
Yeah.
haven't been hitting it hard for 9 years, but I've been running dogs for the last 9 years, and probably the last 4 to 5 years have been hard and heavy.
I got you. So like you said, you were being picky with those tracks and stuff. What were some of the questions I guess you were asking the people when they would call, and then kind of go into what people need to do once they figure out, they need to call you?
Boy, you got like a 3 hour conversation coming with that. That's a loaded question right there. Man, it really depends. There's so many variables, and I could talk all night long. But that first year, it was more how bad have they contaminated it? How hard have they looked? How much have they done? And then getting into how they think the deer's hit, you know,
Okay.
and the sign that they have, or that sign they have on the ground, or what the arrow looks like, or the deer's reaction. And like I said, that's we're talking. That's a very detailed stuff, and I was okay at determining things then about a guy's story, a deer's reaction, the blood on the ground, the blood on the arrow, the track they took. But now I've gotten pretty daggum good at deciphering what's happened,
Yeah,
you know,
because you
and
probably don't get the full story all the time. It was is what I.
rarely. Now, the longer I've been doing it, the more honest guys have been getting with me, and guys that it's mainly guys I've tracked for before.
Yeah.
Um, it once they've seen it, they're like, man, they don't ever want to rush a bad shot ever again. Like if they make a bad shot, they're some guys are just, dude, I'm not even looking for this joker. I know I hit him bad. I'll see you in the morning, kind of type deal.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of that, and I probably sound um, like a police officer trying to figure out a detective scene on a murder, because I'll ask 1,000 questions, man. And I'm like, oh, hey, man, just right off the bat, I'm going to sound like a detective for about the next 10 minutes. But I need to know all these things because it renders how long I'm going to wait, when I'm going to go, how I'm going to come. There's a lot of factors that come involved, and especially early season with the heat, and I mean, it's probably not as bad here as it is down in South Texas, but I mean, it's 85 degrees. Like, I'm gonna wait till the humidity's right.
Yeah.
We got 30% humidity and a liver shot deer. Like, I want to wait till it gets dark to run that track, and a lot of that's just come with doing it, and it's taken me, like I said, 9 years to figure a lot of this stuff out.
Yeah. And it's funny. I've heard that on a podcast too. Of course, like like when you hunt, when do you hunt? Like when you go in the morning when the dew's on the ground, you can smell the pigs because that's kind of what it started doing with with dogs and stuff. But like blood tracking is kind of the same way. And like think about it as water's going to be on that track. And what does water do with like oil essentially coming from that gland is it's going to spread it out. It's going to make that
Yeah.
track a little bit wider and probably a little bit easier to smell too. So I heard that on a podcast before, and it kind of just like clicked in my head, like, that math, it adds up.
Yeah, there's a lot of science behind it, but trying to find a deer that's not putting off a lot of scent in a low humidity situation when the dog's going to get hot on top of that,
Yep.
you're just setting yourself up for failure. So, man, there's a gajillion things that come into play, whenever picking when to go on a track, whether or not to take the track, or how long I'm going to wait, or if hell, I might get a track that's say I get two calls, one's a gut shot and one's a broke leg. Well, I'm running the broke leg as soon as possible. A broke leg deer is a deer that's not hitting his vitals, but he's hitting his leg, and the leg. When I say broke leg, not a lot limping on a leg, or holding a leg. I'm talking like a floppy broke
Yeah,
leg.
it's broke.
Yeah, there's a big difference, because that's my big. I'm like, hey guys, like, was he favoring the leg, or was that leg flopping? Like, was it doing the cartwheels whenever he ran by? Like, I mean, we're talking about a broke leg, bone on the ground, broke leg. Um, that's a deer we run immediately. That's as soon as possible. It's a deer that he's gonna die, but he's not gonna die from that wound per se. He's gonna die from coyotes or predators or whatever it is.
Yeah.
He's hit in a spot where if my dog can catch him, a pack of coyotes can catch him. You know what
True
I'm saying?
story. Yeah.
So so we get two calls and I got a leg shot and a gut shot. Well, I'm going to leg shot immediately, and then I'm going to wait on that gut shot. You know, depending on if it's a gun or a bow, it could be 8 hours, it could be 10 hours. Um, I've had my doors blown off on like a 6, 7 hour old gut shot deer before. Like dog can't stop him running 2 miles.
Yeah.
So there's factors, all those factors come into play.
Yeah. So do you see any difference like with your dog like running two tracks back to back like that? Like is he kind of like is the first one kind of like a warm up and then like kind of like he's like definitely ready to go on that second one, or do you see any difference in that?
Not now. I mean, once again, it depends. Like, does that leg shot deer run a mile and a half before we get him stopped? And then, you know, it's 85 degrees, and then we get to the second track and it's 85 degrees and it's a slower type deal. He's got it figured out now. Like, I don't even have to worry about it, man. But you definitely got to play that stuff into factor because, I mean,
Yeah, you have
you're
to
not,
put him in a good
if you
spot
want to
so
be
he's
successful.
yeah, so he's able to perform. You don't want to push him too hard and then he's not going to do what he wants to do like
Yeah,
which a lot of these people on the other side of like the dog deal, it's like, you're not making this dog do this. Like if this dog didn't want to track deer, if that dog didn't want to run and catch hogs, like
right,
it's not going to do it. It's
right.
just not. So it's the same reason, like we said earlier, like some of the dogs in the litter work out, some of the dogs in the litter don't work out. Not to say that they're any less of a dog, but whatever that is, it's just not their job. You can find something else for them to do. But
Right.
it's just like explaining that like he's not going to perform if he's not feeling well.
Yeah, and honestly, once again the time of year plays a big deal. The beginning of the year, he's not in as good a shape as he's going to be come November 1st or mid-November. You know what I'm saying? My dog could I could tie him to a Can-Am and drive him down the road, and when he's done running, you could just drag him to death. He's not going to keep running. I can't like force him to get in shape. I've got
Yeah,
buddies that their dog will just run with them and then get him in shape before deer season. My dog does not do that shit. Yeah.
that was going to be my next question. Like how, like
yeah,
what do you do? You just have to.
there's no legging him up before season. I promise you. Yeah, you get
That's
to
funny.
that first week of October and that's where we're getting in shape.
Yeah,
So,
that's where he's getting in shape. That's his two a
yeah.
days and warm ups
But
and
like,
stuff.
yeah, come November the 5th or whatever, we're legged up and we're running several tracks a day, and then we're kind of trying to play the scenarios the best we can. Like I said, you're not gonna go just because I get a gut shot call at 8 a.m. doesn't mean I'm gonna skip the leg shot. If I get a gut shot at 8 a.m. and then I get a leg shot at 9 a.m., I'm calling the gut shot guy, hey dude, I gotta run this deer first. It's in the best odds for all of us.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I'm saying?
And I'm sure
Yeah.
sometimes you might have a guy like, "Hey man, I need you here." Well, we got to give it some time. You got
Oh, dude.
we got to play that game too and explain to him like, "Hey man, I understand, or this is a big deal for you, or a big deal period, but like we have
Yeah.
to do this the right way. I know
Oh,
you're excited. I want to
uh,
come catch this deer for you also. Like we're
yeah.
both in this together."
My favorite is they'll get the phone call and you hear leaves crunching and you hear gasping for air. Hey man, you got a deer dog? Yeah, man, I got a deer dog. We just jumped this deer. Stop what you're doing and get the hell out of the woods. Call me when you get to the truck. But first thing you need to do is get the hell out of there because whatever you're doing, you're just not good. I can tell you right now from the sound of your voice and the panting and the leaves crunching, you need to stop what we're doing.
Yeah,
And
those are two big
let's,
signs right there.
yeah,
You're
I'm
doing
not
the
going
wrong thing.
anywhere, but get to the truck. Call me when you've calmed down because we're all you're doing is making this. So, and it's, well, uh, I need you here now. No, listen, I'm telling you right now, we need to pump the brakes,
Yeah.
go eat lunch. Well, send me the pictures you got, and then we'll go from there. But first things first, get the hell out of there.
Yeah, yeah. So let me ask you this, because like I've seen it and it's helped a lot. With me, it just so happened like we film a lot of our hunts and stuff, right? So a couple times now while filming, that has helped. Kind of decide whether
Oh
deer,
yeah,
how good deer hit or animals are hit. Period. What
yeah.
percentage of guys do you have that are actually filming or like have video to be like, hey, this is exactly what happened, and what kind of a relief is that for you?
Not many. It's probably 20%, 25%. But they'll be halfway through a story. Yeah, we video, blah, blah. I'm like, no, no, no. Whoa, whoa, what'd you say? You video? Yeah, yeah, yeah. We gotta stop. Send me that video right now.
Yeah,
And then I can make, to me, like a story is sometimes polar opposite of a video and sign on the ground and the deer's reaction. Deer's reaction is a big one.
yeah,
So I listen to the story, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, the arrow doesn't lie, the deer's reaction normally doesn't lie, and a video dang sure doesn't lie. So there's there's a lot of that. If I get a video, I want to see that very first thing. I want to see the video. And like I said, for me, I track a lot of archery deer. I'm up, yeah, Grayson and Collin County up here are archery only. And then southern Oklahoma, where I'm at a lot, is predominantly is archery. They've only got 2 weeks of rifle season, so majority of my tracks are bow. So if you got a video, that's cool. But my main thing is I want to see that arrow. Um, Now crossbows can be a little weird sometimes. It's like I don't know what it is about these Raven and whatever crossbows that are flying a million miles an hour. They can be deceiving. I mean, I've seen them zip through guts and like almost be clean arrow, and I've come to notice that over the last couple of years. But like an arrow, 90% of the time, if you could show me the fletchings on that arrow, I can tell you pretty daggum close where that deer is hit and how long we're gonna wait.
okay.
So
So let's hear like what color, for the listeners and stuff, like what color, and for me, like what color makes you excited and what color makes you feel like, okay, we're gonna have to work for this one.
once again, long topic. So I'll start. I'll start from we'll just say the front of the deer, and we'll work our way back. You go with that?
Sounds good.
With the bow, with the arrow, right?
Yep.
So you're talking about your brisket shot axis deer, right?
Yeah.
That you shot with a rifle. Don't get me wrong, it was a rifle, but like a brisket leg, and then that brisket wraps down below the arm, below the legs, the front legs, and about a quarter of the way to the down the body. There's a brisket area, okay, and that's low.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be bright red blood on the ground, and there's going to be fat on your arrow. It's going to be like a greasy, slimy, white fat. The arrow's not going to be painted with blood. There's going to be a little bit of blood here and there. There's probably going to be white hair, and there's going to be a little phlegm of fat along that arrow. Okay, this guy's going to track his deer 300 yards. Blood. There's going to be blood everywhere, right? Bright red blood everywhere. It's good blood. And if I see that arrow, I'm like, no, it ain't good. It ain't good blood. Like there's a difference.
Yeah.
There's a lot of blood. I mean, it looks like a lot. Now, people don't realize that it takes. I want to say a deer has like 6 liters of blood in it, and it takes two of them to even slow them down. You're talking about 2 liters of blood. Like that's, I can walk, and I've done this doing these mock drills. You can walk with just a regular water bottle of blood. I can drip that blood for a mile. Like just drip, drip, drip for a mile. I mean, and that's just one little water bottle.
Yeah.
So you're telling me, yeah, this deer's lost 2 liters of blood. I don't think people understand how much 2 liters of blood is. So That deer is not going to die. It's got fat on the arrow. It's a low, bright red blood. That deer is probably long gone. He runs off hard. Doesn't, normally not going to limp or anything like that. It's going to be a run hard. Never see that deer. We're not gonna find it. We can find him and run him with the dog, but you're not gonna stop him and get him finished off.
Yeah.
Okay, so most of those calls I do not take now. Like it's not a mortally wounded deer. We can go find them. Don't get me wrong. A lot of times, but we're just gonna run them and end up on a different property or chase that deer to the next county. And it might take a month to see him again. When if we'd have left him alone, he might come back the next
Right
week.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of times they don't even know they're hit. I mean, it's just it's like a bug bite. I mean, they know something happened, but they're
Yeah.
not mortally hit.
Yeah. You watch two bucks
So,
fight for a couple times, and then you realize like these deer feel
oh,
stuff.
dude,
Don't feel
yeah,
anything. And like we've shot deer too with cactus all in them and like
yeah,
all kinds of stuff. But yeah.
yeah. So there's that. Your leg shot. There's gonna be bone on the ground. Like I said, the broke leg. This is not a shoulder punch. This is a broke leg. The deer's running off with a floppy leg. Your arrow is going to have bright red blood on it, but the main deal is there's going to be like bone on the ground a lot of times. And when you see the deer run off, he's going to have a floppy leg. I mean, there's no ands, if, or buts. Okay? That is a deer that you 100% do not want to pursue. You cannot go without a dog on that deer because all he's going to do is get up and run.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, he's not hitting the lungs, he's not hitting the heart, he's not hitting anywhere, but his legs broke. So he can get up and run on three legs, and they can dang sure swim on three legs. I don't know if you know this, but like a three-legged deer is going to go to water more oftentimes than not because swimming's a whole hell of a lot easier than running when you got three legs.
Yeah.
And another deal people don't realize is a three-legged deer, let's say a front leg is broke, will go uphill a lot. And people are like, well, why would he go uphill? Well, think about it. That deer is going uphill. The weight is down on his ass. And he's putting
Yeah.
less weight on his front legs,
And
right?
he's using more of his back legs.
Exactly. So why wouldn't you do that, right? He's going to use that to his advantage. So, go, oh, there's no way he'd go uphill. I promise you, he'll go uphill and he's going to get in the next pond he sees or lake or whatever the heck because it's easier to swim than it is to run with a floppy
Mm-hmm.
broke leg. So that's when you don't want to pursue without a dog, no matter what. That deer's not going to die unless you can sneakily get up there and get a second shot off. You know what I'm saying? He's going to get taken down by coyotes a week from now
Yeah.
or whatever, unless you can get a dog there. That's 100% go for us. If it's a leg shot, broke leg, bone on the ground, I want that track. I'm going to go on that one every time and try it. But like I said, if they've pressured that deer and bumped him a couple times, it could be a really hard deer to trap.
Yeah.
A lot of times they're not, sometimes they'll put off a lot of blood, but a lot of times they won't. And if that deer gets pushed and pushed, it's kind of a hard deer to find. Once you find them, you can usually run them. It might run them. Well, I feel like a lot of times a leg shot deer runs like a mile. I don't know why, but like a mile. And you got to have the ground to do that stuff on too, right? So, if they stop inside of them, they might get down a creek bottom or in a pond or something, and they feel safe and they'll stay right there. They'll bay up, and you can go in there and put them down, right? So from there, you got this shoulder punch is the call I get every day. Every single day during deer season, I get the shoulder. Man, I smoked him right in the shoulder. And I'm like, okay, you smoked him, but like, how much arrow got in? Well, I don't know, 6, 8 inches. Nah, probably not going to do it. Was his leg broke? No, he ran off on all four. They ran hard. Got bright red blood for 200-300 yards. Yeah. Unless you've built your arrow, and now I'm saying this on the majority of the time, there are situations where a factory arrow and a factory bow, blah blah blah, will get through a shoulder, but it's very rare.
Yeah.
So, and that is a track that I take rarely. If they say I stuck him, I heard a loud whack. I got 3/4 an arrow sticking out of him. He ran off with the arrow, or it fell out right there. That deer's not gonna die.
Mm.
9 times out of 10. Okay. Now you can get in there 10, 12 inches and catch one lung, and that deer 9 times out of 10 ain't gonna die either. And I've ran these deer a long, long ways, and occasionally you'll get one that'll check up and bait up, and you can finish them off. But that, if you don't have your arrows built heavy, and I could get on a soapbox on that stuff too. Now, I'm not talking Ranch Fairy 9,000 grain heavy. I'm talking 500 grain, 450 to 600 ish, a
Yeah.
nice adding weight to your arrow. I don't care about FOC and all that shit, but like a nice heavy
Yep.
arrow, right?
Well,
Not
good. I'm
not
glad
your
because
not your factory arrow, okay?
yeah, I was gonna ask. So I shoot my arrows 465 grains. So I was like, okay. When you said where it was, I was like, all right. But I'm shooting 465 grain arrow. My draw is 28 and 3/4. It's kind of like right in between there. And then I'm pulling
Okay.
back 60. I'm at 68 pounds. So I mean, it can go. I don't know if it'll make it through a shoulder. First of all, that's not personally where I aim. I'm more of
No.
like I want to hit in the lungs. That's my
Well,
aiming spot.
well,
That's a
that's
big
what everybody
area.
wants to do, right? Like
Yeah,
that's my biggest deal is, well, hell, you don't need a heavy arrow. You hit them where you want to. Well, damn, dude, like that don't happen all the
all the
time. Like a
time.
deer,
Yeah,
I've noticed a common trend lately is these deer will not only duck, but when they duck, they'll roll. So they're trying to duck, roll, and get out of town. Well, you're hitting them good on the entry, and then if you do get it past you, it comes out high on the exit.
mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's you can't plan that out. Yeah, you smoked him, and your arrow went through his shoulder blade and came out the other side, but it exited high. So you hit one long and maybe the top of the other if you're
Yeah.
lucky, right? So that's a whole nother deal. But um, that tell me this: do you know what your foot per second is? Do you know what you have you
Uh,
chronographed it?
yeah, I did. It's what is it? It's right under 300. It's not 300, but it's
Oh,
like
dude, well, you're
278 somewhere around there,
yeah,
280 something like that.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't like I said I'm on. I've listened to a million different things, and I know what when I set my arrows up, and I've
Yeah.
seen what they can do and what guys that I know set their stuff up. Like a 250, or I'm sorry, a 450 grain to 550 grains in there, and 275 to like 295 area feet per second
Yeah.
is like the sweet spot where you're not going to have this crazy drop off at 60 yards, if you're hunting out west, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. So that arrow will go through a shoulder. Now, obviously, there's the whole fixed head expandable shit that we won't get into, but I carry both in my quiver, and I see this stuff more than most,
Yeah.
right?
I shoot the
Um,
hybrids. So it's got the smaller point, but it's still got the
right.
mechanical. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. Hopefully, I don't know. It's worked for me so
I mean,
far.
they all work until they don't, So,
True
and
story.
and I'll say one thing, and I'll leave it at that. 3 blade expandable broadheads that open from the front back are the worst damn broadheads on the planet. And I'm just saying this with my experience. Okay. Now, a or I guess there's no really 3 blades that are a slip cam, but like a 2 blade broadhead where the blades that come out the bottom, a slip cam.
Uh-huh.
Okay, those are okay. Okay, so, but the 3 blade that hit and then they expand like this, you're they're killing all your momentum, especially if you don't have a heavier arrow set. So what I see a lot is a quartering shot, number one, or this
Okay.
just straight shoulder shot. That'll hit, they'll get their point in, and those blades open, and then it just deflects the arrow. And a lot of times, a
Mm.
lot of these ones will be, hey, I hit him right behind the shoulder. I got 12 inches in it. Okay, that should do it. Why are you calling me? Well, he ran off, blah, blah, blah. There's the arrow still on him. Well, a lot of times that arrow is hitting at an angle and going between the shoulder blade and the rib cage.
Mm-hmm.
and not ever in the chest cavity. So, but the problem with those three blade that open from the front, they hit and then they deflect because they're opening the system instead of the arrow getting into the broadhead getting into the cavity, and then the blades are slipping out and it's getting in there.
Again, in
Does
there
that
like
make
that.
sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. Huh.
Like I've got a bunch of, well, I could pick. I'll tell you that my two favorite broadheads on the planet, but I'm just saying, stop shooting three blade mechanical arrows that expand from the front.
Yeah.
Now, do they work a lot of times? Heck yeah, they do. But I'm
But
telling you, in that
but that's
quartering away or quartering situation or the shoulder situation or they duck and roll, they're terrible, man.
yeah. Yeah.
And I might get some flack for that, but I'm just being honest, man. I hate
I
like
mean,
when it's
it's what you see. It's not like you're making this up,
no,
for people just to say, "Oh, well, just because I like this one more than this one." It's
yeah. I
what
don't
you
get
see.
paid to I don't get paid to shoot broadheads. I promise you.
Exactly.
So
And if you're seeing one thing more than with another, then you should be able to
yeah,
say it because you're the one out
right.
there.
And I've seen some broadheads do shit that they you wouldn't expect them to, or deer die from a. I had one the middle of the season that another broadhead I don't really care for is like a real small three blade fixed head.
Uh huh.
They'll get better penetration, but if you shoot them back, it's a very small wound channel.
Mm-hmm.
But if you got like the other day, I had one, and dude, if he would have sent me this video, I would have never thought that this deer would have died. It was a very high shoulder shot, but he got through the shoulder obviously, and the deer ran like 100 yards and was dead. Now, he didn't video it or anything, but he saw the deer die and he was calling me to let my puppy come track. It was like a little buddy deal, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I'm telling you right now, if he would have sent me the video, because I know where this sucker was hit, I would have never expected it to get through. And he had a factory ass arrow with, who knows what bow, whatever it was. It wasn't a setup that you would expect to blow through a shoulder and get a double long shot. So
Yeah.
it happens. We can argue about it from dusk till dawn. But if you want to set up for success, you need to add a little weight to your arrow. And I like a cut on contact broadhead.
Yeah. So,
Now there's a few of them that have a cut on contact, like I don't know what you're shooting, but that are hybrid that have a cut on contact small blade and then
yeah.
an expandable.
Yep. Yeah. So those are the Grim Reapers. It's the Grim Reaper mini mags.
Yeah,
Yeah, the Grim Reaper mini
but it has a
mags.
two blade expandable, or is it a three?
That one, shoot, I'd have to look at them again
It's
because
probably a two blade, like cut on contact with two
yeah,
blade expandable. Yeah, that's a good one.
yeah,
They also make the worst one on the planet, which is that three blade Grim Reaper Whitetail Special. I hate that broadhead. But anyways,
yeah, yeah.
but
I
they
went
have a bunch of other good broadheads now. Gosh dang, that three
that
blade
and
open from the
but
front.
they named it so perfectly. It's the
Yeah.
Whitetail Special. Like
Oh,
you, I
it's the
mean,
Whitetail Call a Dog Special.
that's funny. Yeah, it's marketing, man. It's right there. For a guy sitting up there trying to figure out which one, it's like, well, that one says Whitetail Special. Here we
Well,
go.
and like I said, you hit the sucker behind the shoulder, and it's gravy. You hit him in
Yeah,
the liver, in the guts, you'll have a good blood trail. But I've even seen it hit like a big three blade expandable like that'll hit in a spot where it's only hitting ribs. It's not hitting like good hard bone. It
yeah,
still won't get a pass through. You know what I mean? But you got a big ass hole, so it's it has its benefits. Like I said, I carry a small fixed blade broadhead, and I say small, borderline smaller fixed blade broadhead, and I carry a big expandable two blade that's a slip cam.
yeah,
But they have different things. I mean, I'm not going to shoot a fixed blade long range for the most part. Like I got my bow tuned up pretty good, and I probably would never shoot super long range anyways. But I do go elk hunting every year, and if something were to
nice.
happen and I need to make a 70-yard shot, like probably going to put the mechanical in there and aim away from the shoulder. You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying?
exactly, exactly.
So they all have their pluses and minuses. And people will say, I'll hear a lot of, "Oh, we track mainly expandable broadheads." I don't, and we track a lot of, like I said, a lot of archery deer. It's about even. Um, my biggest deal is just people just shoot lightweight arrows, and I just think you got to have a little bit of oomph on them, especially like women or children that are shooting a lower poundage, lower velocity bow. You got to rely on some weight to get that penetration. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's my big deal on that, man.
And I feel like too. I mean, arrows aren't really cheap. I mean, you do get to
Oh
reuse them.
man,
They're a little bit better than bullets or shooting out of a rifle or shotgun shells or something, but they're still pretty expensive. And those
oh
lighter
dude.
ones are a little bit cheaper than those heavier arrows.
Well, and I think a lot of it people just don't know any better. I mean, you go to the
That
bow
too.
shop and they throw you a bow, and I mean the sucker shoots darts at 40 yards. I mean, don't get me wrong, but the spine might not be good enough, and the arrow might not be heavy enough. Will it work 80%, 90% of the time? Yes. Don't get me wrong, but when I get called, it's the accident. So and there are some shots that were perfect and just weird how the strong
Yeah.
tough deer that
How
made
it
it a
felt.
ways right
Yeah.
and didn't bleed or whatever. But 9 times out of 10, it's that accident. It's that deer coming in chasing a doe, or it's that deer that turned and rolled or ducked, or
Hmm.
or hit a limb. I had a couple deer this year that got hit a tree limb and then deflected
Yeah.
the arrow into their flank or something like that. So it's 90, 80, 90% times, yeah, heck yeah, it's gonna work, but why not, if something happens, have your arrow set
Have
up
a
for a
have a
little
little
bit of
backup plan.
a little insurance policy, you know what
There
I'm
you
saying?
go. Yeah, yeah. It makes sense, man. It makes sense. So, kind of like we were talking about, kind of moving back on the deer, we were talking about that shoulder. So, coming off
Yeah,
that shoulder for those guys that are, I've never really subscribed to like the tuck it to the shoulder to get the heart shot, but like,
right.
I guess that would be probably the next spot that we would kind of talk about.
Yeah. So on your heart shot, like a low armpit is what I call it. You're 9 times out of 10, you're probably gonna get a pass through unless it's a quarter away shot and you hit the offside shoulder.
Shoulder.
Um, you blow through there, usually you're gonna find that deer. Um, the arrow is gonna have just a red blood. There's not gonna be any bubbles on it, but it's kind of a deceiving arrow because um, it can mimic like a muscle shot sometimes. Like it just looks like bright red blood, but like not a whole lot to it, right?
Yeah.
No bubbles, none of that stuff. But a heart shot animal is not going to run. I say this most times. I've seen some videos of like blowing the bottom part of the heart off. Like I've
Yeah.
seen videos of it where arrow goes in the armpit and you're thinking money, and the deer runs out there at 200 yards and then just stops and is like kind of
Looks around.
looking around. I mean, it's hurt, but it ain't running to its death like a lot of times.
Yeah.
So most time on that heart shot deer, if you were to see that deer stop and run out there and stop, just go to the truck and wait a few hours, 2, 3 hours. I know it's hard to do, but that deer's gonna die, right? There's no ands if or buts. Can't live without the heart. So, and then the other ones, if you get a pass through and knock through the heart, I mean, it should be pretty easy find. Going to the double lung type deal, um, well, you get your most time you're going to pass through. Sometimes you'll hit the offside shoulder and not get your pass through. These deer aren't going to go past 200 yards 9 times out of 10. That's my biggest. When I talk to people and it's like, hey, I think I shot a deer bad, blah blah blah. I'm like, all right, here's what. If it looks like you think it's good, go 200 yards. If you go 200 yards and you don't have a dead deer, something's might be fishy.
Yeah.
Like I said, this is the majority of the time. This isn't all the time. But like a double lung deer is not going to go more than 200 yards and it's going to be dead. Most times, like I said, most times. Um, so that's kind of my general consensus on anywhere on a deer. I don't care what happened inside 200 yards. If you don't find a dead deer, something's wrong. You
Yeah.
need to stop. I don't care if there's a painted ass blood trail for 200 yards. I'm
Yeah.
serious. Like I mean,
Like you said, 2 liters of blood. That's a lot of blood.
I can go 200 yards with a shot glass of blood. I mean, like it doesn't take a whole lot to look like a lot of blood. So that one, obviously, double lung is going to die uh, every time. I mean, you could single lung's a whole different story. That's a deer that could survive forever, or you might be it might kill it. You might be able to run it with a dog for a little ways and then bay up and be able to dispatch it. But you're not that that's going to be an arrow that's not a pass through,
Yeah.
or a rifle shot that's a hard quartering shot, and you might get one lung. So most like I said, most stuff I'm talking about is archery stuff. We can talk about rifle stuff too. They go hand in hand on a lot of stuff. But the good thing about archery is it's slow, and you usually have an arrow to look at.
Yeah.
You know, so like I said, the double lung mainly pass through, dead inside 200 yards. They're gonna run off hard. If they stop and check up and walk, it's not a double lung deer. It's a lung and a liver or something like that. And then we'll go straight back from the lungs and go to liver.
Yeah.
Liver shot deer. Like I said, most time you're gonna get a pass through. Okay, this deer, the arrow is gonna have it's gonna be a darker blood most of the time, more often than not. And a lot of times on the fletching, you're gonna see these little black specks on the fletching, and that's just liver specks, is what I call them, whatever that is.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, it just you'll see like usually the arrow is painted. When I say painted, I mean it is coated with a blood. It's not a runny blood. It is a thick coated painted blood, and a lot of times it's a deeper, darker color. And then you'll see those liver spots on there or the little dark specks on the fletching.
Yeah.
Okay, that deer a lot of times will run 100 yards and then check up and then walk off, or it'll run or it might not even run. It might walk off, tail flickering kind of type deal. And like I said, all these are stuff that I hear with the story, but without
Mm-hmm.
seeing that arrow, that's my determinant. If I see liver specks on there, that's a deer. Say if you don't want to use a dog or whatever, at minimum that's a 6 hour wait for a guy, like at minimum. Okay. Now, could that deer die in 30 minutes? Yes. Don't get me wrong, it happens. But a liver shot deer, I wait 6 hours on with a dog, and that's knowing that he could possibly run the deer and bay it up, and we finish it off.
Still, yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of times they're gonna run and walk, or they're gonna walk off. Yeah, like I said, sometimes they'll just flat out run off. But a lot of times the stereotypical liver shot is a run 40, 50 yards, 100 yards, tuck tail, and then they'll kind of walk off, and sometimes the tail will be twitching and stuff like that. Um, but it's going to be a darker blood. That's a deer for us is 100%. I'm going to go track it. Sometimes a liver shot deer can be tough if it's just straight liver shot.
Yeah.
I don't know why, especially like an upper body liver, like from midline to the backbone, like in there. If you hit the liver, can be a tough trap. Won't have a whole lot of blood, and for some reason, especially in early October, I feel like every year I leave a liver shot deer in the woods. Like it just the humidity sucks. It's dry. I'm not gonna make excuses, but it's a
Yeah.
harder deer to find. It's happened to me the last 2 or 3 years. That first 2 weeks October, I'll leave a deer that I know is dead in the woods, and it's just a harder deer to track. They got bumped or whatever it may be. Um, a straight liver deer sometimes is hard to track
Yeah.
for the
It-
dog.
which it makes sense. I mean, of course your liver is something that they need, but
Right.
it's not as vital, I guess you would say, for them to live on. They're tough animals, man. Like
Oh, there's no doubt.
like
And
you
I think
said, that
especially
they live
sometimes
with
the
one
top.
lung.
Yes, a lot, a
Yeah.
lot. And so the liver deal, and like I had one this year that was complete pass through crossbow. He thought he hit mid body. Arrow looked liver. I mean, everything about it looked good. Hey, whatever. Let's let him sit overnight. I'll come in the morning. We went, and it had been like 16 hours later, and I had a really really hard time finding this deer. I had to push the dog past where he ran out. Ran into some coyote, just a bunch of stuff on the trail. But anyways, almost probably wouldn't have found the deer if we didn't walk further down this certain creek line, whatever. Anyways, Found this deer at 16 hours later, and I'm talking through and through liver shot, and the Joker was alive with a, and it wasn't a small fixed blade either. It was a good, like a large expandable broadhead.
Yeah.
So,
Golly,
and
they're tough animals.
dude, that's what, and the people, it's like people will never believe that, but I'm telling you right now, dead nuts, topside liver, complete pass through with a large two blade broadhead. It was 16 hours old. Now, was he running a long ways? No. I mean, we got him bait up pretty quick inside 50 yards from where the dog bumped him.
Found him, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it was there was a lot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
Golly.
yeah. And that, a lot of times most times a liver shot, you can wait a little less time than you can a gut shot. The gut shot, obviously we're getting to the liver and back. So we're talking liver to the back leg, right?
Yep.
Mid body and back, and the guts go all the way to the bottom of the belly.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike like on the front where your brisket is, like by your front legs, there's a little chunk of fat there that you're not going to hit anything, right?
Yep.
Now you get to the about mid body, and from mid body to the back leg, if you hit inside that anywhere in there, you're hitting guts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now there's different types of guts, right? You got your large intestine, small intestine, stomach, and all that shit. But if you get a pass through from mid body to the back leg, this is a deer that's going to die. Okay, like this is a deer we'll track every time, but it's a deer that we're going to wait on.
Mm-hmm.
Arrow is going to have. Then now this is the stuff that I see. Sometimes arrow won't smell. A lot of times it will smell. Sometimes it'll be caked in nasty green stuff, right? I mean, and then sometimes it'll have blood, like a real thin blood on it, and just some little gritty stuff on the fletchings, like
Yeah.
almost looks like sand. Like not a whole lot of nothing and doesn't smell. But if there's anything on that fletching that's not blood and it's not that black little liver speck, it's gut.
Yeah.
And that is a animal that a lot of times you'll hear like a thump, like a watermelon type
Mm-hmm.
thump, and that deer it's gonna run. It might walk off, and it's kind of like the liver deal. It might run 50, 80, 100 yards, and it's gonna stop and kind of haunch up, and it's gonna walk off a lot of times. When you have that deer, you do not go after that deer, especially with a dog less than 12 hours. I mean, like I said, they can die in 2 hours. Don't get me wrong, it happens.
Yeah.
But if you want to err on the side of caution and finding that deer, one, you probably need to call a good dog, but two, don't jack with that thing inside 12 hours. And I don't care if it's, a lot of guys, well, it's 85 degrees, man. The meat's going to go bad. Well, that deer's not dead right now. So,
Yeah.
like, it doesn't matter if it's been alive, if it's 12 hours before you go tracking. If the deer's not dead, then that meat's not ruined. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So, that's a anytime you've got and the blood on a gut shot deer can be bright and dark. A lot of times you'll see both of them on a trail. There'll be a little bright red and a little dark blood, blah blah blah. But a lot of the telltale is some sort of grit, sandy, and then you have the smell, and you'll have just a super obvious straight green arrow, that goes through the stomach or something like that.
Yeah.
That's our highest percentage track. I will take a gut shot every single time. And it sounds crazy. People are like, what? That's well, no, that's like the easiest track for a dog.
Yeah, because
You
you know
know,
they're gonna die.
exactly.
You
A
just
lot of
got to
these
give it
other,
some time.
exactly. And all these things are, deer that you can find if they're not messed with. You know what I'm saying? Um, we'll find a gut shot deer even when they're messed with 9 times out of 10. But I mean, you could get coyotes on a gut shot deer that you left overnight, and it might run 3 miles and you never find it.
Oh yeah.
So there are those situations. But yeah, when you were talking about what call gets you excited, well, gut shot gets me excited.
I like it, man.
100%.
I
Yeah, that's
like
our
it. I like
most
it.
most successful. I mean, it's like I said, you're not gonna find them all, but if 9 times out of 10, you're finding that deer.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's good to know, man. Like you said, and knowing those different things and what you're gonna see when you hit different parts of deer, I think people really should like if especially if you're archery hunting, I mean, if you're rifle hunting too, is knowing what you're looking at when you're
Yeah.
getting to that site, and knowing when to not go and chase after it, or when to go get your deer. Because I mean, it's it takes a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of learning to really get it down. But I think it's I mean, honestly, if you're gonna hunt, I kind of think it's a little bit of your responsibility. Is something you should learn, or at least have a good
Yeah.
idea, or be able to communicate and set up the guy that's going to bring the dog, or have a dog to be able to put that dog in a position to be successful in finding the deer for you. I mean, it's real easy to get excited. Trust me, I know,
Well,
been there myself.
everybody is, man,
But
and
it's
it's
you got to get it right.
yeah, and it's one of those things. Most deer trackers that and I say commercially, it's guys that like go and do it for public. Most of those guys, you could call them whenever it is and just give them a rundown, and those guys are gonna help you out, man. They're gonna tell you, hey, dude, go look for your deer. He's dead,
Yeah,
or hey, it's a gut shot. Don't mess with it. Let us come. Blah blah blah. Or if you think you want to look, don't go inside 12 hours. Wait till overnight. Or hey, there's bone on the ground. Hey, you will not catch this deer unless a dog's there. Most times because that deer is just going to keep getting up and going and going. Can you get them sometimes without a dog? Maybe, but more often times than not. Most of those guys, like a reputable dog tracker, like a commercial guy, he's going to be up honest with you, and calling him is free, man. I mean, call him, tell him, take pictures, whatever you got, and give them, and be honest. That's the other deal. Is a lot of guys want to. I've got, and I feel like I say it too often, how excited gut shots are to me. But I think guys will lie to me. Hey, he's gut shot, and I'm like, I don't even ask questions. They're like, they know I'm coming, right? They can get me
yeah,
out there no matter what, and then I'll get there and be like, damn it, I should have asked more questions. So
yeah.
be honest with them, man. That'll be your best bet. And a lot of, like I said, these are 90% of these guys that do this commercially or full time during deer season are going to be honest with you, because they're not going to want to waste their time or your time. Like I said, I can take I think I took 75 calls this year, and I could have taken 100 plus if I wanted
Yeah.
to. But this is, I'm not going to go take that 6-inch shoulder shot with the old whitetail special, man. I'm just not doing it.
Yeah.
So, we're not, like I said, most of us are not going to be out there to just take your money. So,
Yeah.
and a lot of times just over the phone, a 10-minute conversation can, give you a little bit of closure if it's something that's not worth tracking, or hey, this is what we need to do, kind of type deal.
Yeah. Exactly. So how old's your dog that you have right now?
He is about to turn 7.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have another one in training or getting started or anything?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I've tried 3 or 4 since he's been around. It's not easy to find, man. I've got one right now. He's 8 or 9 months old, and put him on a lot of deer this year, and he's showing a little promise. But like I said, he's not like a surefire deal, but he has definitely gotten started. I think probably midway. I bet by November next year, I'll know whether he's going to make it or not. Like he's going to make the cut.
I got
Like I
you.
said, I've had a couple dogs since I've gotten Huck, my main dog. That would find a dead deer, you know, and that's cool and all, but that's not, finding just the old 200-300 yard dead deer is not what I'm here for. I can't
Yeah.
have deer running off with a floppy leg and him not going and baying that deer up and getting him put down, because that's what a real deer dog will do. So,
Exactly.
right. So I've run through a few dogs, and I had dogs that would like to finish part, the bay part. They would love to catch and bay and all that stuff, but they couldn't track shit.
Mm,
So they just come in for the fun. Huck do all the work. They hear him baying and they go in for the fun stuff. You know what I'm
me too,
saying?
dogs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Heck, exactly. Coming in for the party, right? So
Yeah.
it's. So like I said, I, I I've never gotten, and I'm praying for that day that I get like a natural dog. There are natural dogs out there. I've got a few buddies that have gotten a dog and just like naturally does it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're, and it might be a mutt, it might be a well bred dog or whatever, but they just some dogs will just do it. But it's a it's a it's a different deal with these deer dogs. We only, unless you're around a bunch of high fences and you can train during the off season, like you only get to train deer dogs during deer season.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
exactly.
So to me it's harder, and to get a dog that'll do it all with the deer, in my
Yeah.
opinion. So, but no, I've got one, and he's out of a whole different line, and I've got high hopes for him. We'll see what happens. But if you don't have another dog you're training at all times, then you're behind the curve. So,
Yeah, makes sense. So have you had more luck with males or females?
males for me.
Yeah.
That I've ran. Guess I've had the last two females I've gotten rid of, or I'm getting rid of, and I've only had, honest to God, dude, I've had one dog do this out of like 10 dogs.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've had dogs find dead ones, or I've had dogs at bay and do all that stuff, and it's probably me. I'm a shitty trainer or something, but I've only had one dog out of 10 that'll do it. That'll do
Hey,
it,
yeah.
all of it.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, man, they're hard to find to be able to have that whole package. Like you said, you found dogs that have done pieces or multiple different things, but it's finding a dog that will do the whole thing and being able to rely on it and know that if you set it up for success, that dog's gonna have success. So yeah,
Yeah,
man, it's a hard thing to do, and you're gonna go through dogs to find them for sure.
yeah, and that's, I mean, that's the is keeping your head down, and I was, hell, it was 2 days ago. I've got a place that I have MLD, so I can still hunt right now. And we were shooting does or whatever, and we had a doe and put the puppy down, and I'm like, man, I thought I hit her this way, blah blah blah, and the puppy went like 200, 300 yards and kind of gave up, and I'm like, man, I just can't trust him. You know what I'm saying? Like if I put Huck down on a deer and he don't find it and it's been uncontaminated, like hadn't been ran across the county by a human or coyotes or blah blah, like he don't find it.
Yeah,
So it's so frustrating because it's like you can't never trust them 100% until they're finished dog. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So inevitably, I had to put Huck down, and of course, the Joker went and found it, and it was one of those scenarios where this deer should not have done what it did. It was unpressured, unmessed with. Ended up being like a gut shot deer, and she went like 550 yards without being provoked. Like, a lot
yeah,
of time, most of the times a deer's gonna bed down inside 200. That's my thing. That's what I tell people. And this deer didn't do that.
yeah.
And I was like, what the heck,
Just that outlier, man.
And you just never know. And I swear, I think I find these weird situations like this with older deer, and they're smarter, and I think they've been around long enough that they do things um, intentionally. Like
Yeah,
it sounds weird, but from what I see and the stuff I see, these older deer are smarter, and they do weird stuff, man. And
yeah. I
like
mean that makes sense. It's the same thing. If you ever seen an older buck before he like if you watch deer come into a field, right? They're usually all pretty much come out the same. It's the mamas and the does kind of come first, and then you get those younger bucks running around. But if you ever watched an older buck walk out into a field or come into a food plot or something, it is completely different
you
than every other deer. And most of the time you don't even know that he even really showed up. You're going to see those other does and those younger bucks running, through cover to get there, and you're going to kind of see him before. But when you see that buck, most of the time it's because you're looking and you see him and he's just like standing there
ghost, yeah,
still,
yeah.
just looking everywhere, and he's not moving his head. He's just moving his eyes, scanning the whole field, and he
Yep.
takes his time. So I mean, what you're saying about older deer doing different stuff, like it makes sense. And some of those older does, same way. You get that doe that's out there blowing, the century one, that's checking out everything. She
Yeah.
acts a little different when she gets shot, I bet too.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that was the deal. This was a at least a 6-year-old doe, and it was kind of like, man, these suckers when they get older, it's funny that they'll put a little curve in there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
That's no lie, man. Well, dude, I also wanted to hear more about Lite Hounds and how you came up with this idea, like you said, for this brand that you're gonna start and
yeah,
this figure. How did that come about, man? And like, were you into like art or drawing before? Or did you do that yourself or have it made? Kind of how did it work?
yeah. So um, I am not. I can't draw. I couldn't draw a stick figure deer. But I kind of had this idea. Uh, long story short, of like a skeleton type dude and a skeleton type dog, and my thought process was like a houndsman or a hound of the past. Like you always hear these legend houndsmen, or that dog that died too soon, or this type deal. And I was like, man, that'd be cool uh, to have like a skeleton type guy and the dogs or whatever. So when I came up with this idea, and I paid a guy that's an artist, right, that to
Yeah,
draw
yeah,
me up a sketch for my RL logo. And dude, just knocked it out of the park. And I was like, man, I had a lot of people say, man, that's badass. Like that looks cool. That's probably one of the cooler logos I've seen. Like just with houndsman type stuff.
yeah.
And I got like through season, had some other people like, man, what about like duck dogs and hog dogs and whatever. I'm like, yeah, that'd be cool if I did that stuff, but I don't really do that stuff anymore. Like I still go hog dogging, but I don't have those type dogs.
Yeah.
I was like, man, it'd be cool to do the same thing I did with my deer sketch with other type dogs. So my thought process is, well, I'm going to stick with this type of legends, like this type of old old houndsman, old dog, the stuff you hear about, but I'm going to run it on different working dogs.
Yeah.
So, so right now I have like a duck dog sketch, a hog dog, and another deer dog sketch. It's actually probably cooler than the deer dog sketch I did for me, and so they're turning out pretty cool. And I've kind of started like a page, and basically just working dog videos. I don't care if it's a police dog, a pointer dog, a cow dog. I don't care, dude. I love dogs. So my whole thought process is just run a page of just working dogs, right?
Yeah.
So so I've got those three that are done, and like I've got a page where you can buy the shirts and the hoodies and the stickers and whatnot. But I've also right now I've got a lion dog sketch that's dang near finished, and it's maybe the best one I've done. We've seen like I say we've done. I ain't drawing it, but
Yeah, but you come up with the idea
my
though.
thoughts on his in him drawing. I got a lion dog one that's almost finished, and then a coonhound one that's is pretty close too. And they're like I said, they're getting better as we're going because we're kind of figuring
Yeah.
things out with the whole the skeletons and whatnot and stuff. So that's where I'm at. I'm trying to create that page, and then like I would like to inevitably, if I got enough interest and things worked out, like I could drop a different working dog sketch every couple months.
Yeah, yeah.
Like have a pointer next month, or a cow dog or whatever. Rabbit dog. I don't care.
Dude, that is a
Anything working dogs is cool to me.
I'm right there with you, man, and I'll definitely. I know we follow the page now, but we'll
Yeah,
drop it in the show notes and stuff so other people they can enjoy it too. Because like I said, man, it's cool stuff, and there's a I, I have a thing with like the skeleton and the crossbones. Like I like the way you did that and kind of
yeah,
giving like a homage to those dogs and those houndsmen and stuff that from the past. So it's a real cool concept and something I can definitely get behind and like I said, help you out any way that I
heck yeah,
can,
man.
share your stuff. So
I
it,
appreciate
it
it.
No problem at all, man. That's one of the reasons why we have the podcast, is just to talk and meet new people. And I've said it before on here, but it's cool to DM people and like share stuff and everything. But like once you can sit down and kind of have a conversation and really get to kind of know somebody and like start friendship and everything, it's cool to do. And that's what I've been trying to do with this podcast. Because like I said, I like creating content, video, photography, and all that stuff. But sitting down and talking to people and being able to hear people hear stories and learn stuff. Like I'm sure there's a couple followers in here that probably could have learned something when you were talking about what different shots and stuff look like. So
Yeah.
hopefully they got something out of it. I'm sure they did. I did for sure, because I hunting wise, like I get to spend a lot of time behind a camera most of the time versus me
Right.
really getting to
Right.
pull the trigger. But it's still like I want to use those opportunities to learn all I can for when I do get to pull the trigger or shoot the bow myself. So, dude, I
Right.
really enjoyed talking to you tonight. We're gonna have to do another one, and I'm excited to share your Lite Hound stuff, and then also your deer tracking page. And if anybody that's in the North Texas area, I know we got some listeners that are up like Dallas Fort Worth, so hopefully
Oh yeah.
they'll give you a shout, and tell you the truth about what really happened when they do give
Right.
you a call. It's kind of set you and your dog up for success, and set them up for getting their deer back to them. So, dude,
Yeah,
that Ricky,
that's the end goal, man. It's to find that deer and get people. I mean, you got guys that are working their tails off for this stuff, and trying to or hunt a deer all year long. Like, why? Let's play it safe. Just call, talk, and figure out a game plan. And like I said, the best thing you can do is stop what you're doing, take a breath, figure out if you need a dog or if you don't need a dog. Most of these guys are going to be honest with you, man, and inevitably, hopefully, have a successful track. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, like you said, you're all deer trackers are a wealth of knowledge, that have good dogs and stuff, and they've seen every shot that you can make. They've seen them all. They know kind of what the deer are gonna do. But you said you have those different outliers and stuff. But for the most part, you give them solid information, they're gonna be able to set you up.
Yep.
For them to come out or just say, "Hey, man, if you follow this track, you're gonna find your deer."
Yeah, and
So
one more thing, like so, there's a difference between a reputable dog tracker and some of these fly by the night guys. You're gonna know that guy that commercial tracker. You can go on his page, or you can talk to anybody that's been around. You're gonna know it's gonna be obvious. Obviously, in my opinion, you need to get a hold of a reputable guy, and it's not hard to find if you do a little bit of research, especially the way social media is nowadays. So,
yeah, yeah, and don't. I'm gonna say this: don't wait till you need him to do the research.
and don't be in a rush if that guy says, "Hey, I can't come for 12 hours." There's a reason he's telling you 12 hours. I promise
Don't
you.
exactly. Don't wait till you need them. Before season starts, you need to be looking. You need to be
Yeah, at
contacted
least have
and
an
say,
idea.
yeah, and it probably wouldn't hurt to give him a call. Say, hey man, I see that you deer track. Kind of vet him. Ask that person or her
100%.
some questions, like what area do you cover, how far do you come out, what can I
100%.
do, what do you want me to give you when I call, like that is a good way to set yourself up for success, not in the middle of the field trying to get service to look on Facebook for the guy that you saw 3 months ago that posted that
Right.
he deer tracks. Like,
Yep.
do the research beforehand, guys, and show up
100%.
ready to go. Well, Ricky, man, I kept you on here a little longer than I want to, but dude, the conversation was too good, and I didn't want to stop it. But we're gonna have to get on another one and do
Yeah.
some more talking about some dogs and kind of where Lite Hound goes and everything else. So,
Heck yeah, man.
thanks for coming on the podcast, and thanks for supporting our page too, man. I see you always liking our stuff and sharing it
You
too.
bet.
So I really appreciate it, and we're gonna do the same and kind of go back and forth in that aspect. So appreciate it, man. Glad I had you on the podcast.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Well, thanks guys for listening.